What don't we know about sugar, Dr. Chaffee? What don't we understand?
Well, we first have to sort of distinguish between what kind of sugars are we talking about. Okay. So when we say sugar, generally we mean table sugar, but obviously there are a lot of different carbohydrates that are called simple sugars. The sugar that you want to watch out for is fructose specifically. So that is, obviously it comes in fruits and so forth, but it's half of sucrose. Sucrose is a disaccharide of glucose and fructose. Right. And then you have high fructose corn syrup, and that's been painted as this sort of evil monster, and it is, but it's almost identical to sucrose. Because it has very similar levels, almost 50% fructose, glucose. But it's just a mixture of the two as opposed to being a bound form. And then honey actually has more fructose than both of those. Yeah. So the problem with fructose is how it's metabolized in your body. It's actually non-essential. It's not something that you need in your body. There are no biochemical processes in your body that require fructose that can't be done by something else. So you don't need it at all. A major problem is that it goes directly to your liver and then gets broken down from there into fatty droplets and other sorts of byproducts. The problem there is that it actually gets broken down to the same byproducts as ethanol, alcohol, right? So you get the same diseases and damage to your body from eating fructose as you do from drinking alcohol.
So you can get fatty liver disease from being an alcoholic and from eating too much sugar.
Exactly. Yeah. So it actually used to be very well known that only alcoholics got fatty liver disease, and then in the 1990s when we started increasing a lot of our sugar consumption, putting sugar in everything because we got rid of the fat in different foods and everything tasted horrible, and so we put sugar in everything, and then all of a sudden 10-year-olds were getting fatty liver disease, and they were also getting adult onset diabetes. Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes because really only found it in adults, and generally they were alcoholics, and that's because the alcohol really causes that. And then all of a sudden 10-year-olds are getting this, and they're saying, well, wow, what's going on here? How can a 10-year-old get adult onset diabetes? They're not an adult, and he's getting fatty liver disease, but only alcoholics get fatty liver disease. How can someone who's never drank alcohol get this? So instead of actually looking into this and actually thinking for literally 1 second, they just said, you know what, we'll just rename it. And so now it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Right, but it's the same
type 2
thing.
Diabetes. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, wow. You mentioned something earlier about people adding, or companies adding sugar to food because they removed the fat, meaning it tasted terrible.
Yeah. Fat, you talk to any chef, they'll tell you fat is flavor.
Yeah, butter.
Yeah, exactly. And so, when we're told that fat's bad for you, it's not. It's actually really, really good for you. Animal fat is. Vegetable oils and so forth are actually quite toxic for a number of reasons. But when you take that out, it tastes very, very bland and horrible. Like even steak, I love steak, but like a lean steak, you can only have so much of it before it's just sort of like, whereas like a fatty steak is obviously much
just
better.
Keep going. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
So you mentioned before, fructose is one of the worst forms of sugar. So if I'm eating fruit, I feel like there's a limit to how much whole fruit I can eat. I'm not going to eat more than 2 apples.
Yeah.
So is it dangerous or is it detrimental for people to be eating whole fruit?
So obviously, it's better, because it's dose dependent, but that's like saying, I'm only doing 2 lines of Coke instead of a whole bag, So, but yeah, you're right. 2 apples is very different than 2 glasses of apple juice.
Yes, exactly.
Like a glass of apple juice, have something like 10 apples, worth of juice go into that. It's going to be a lot more sugar. It's also been shown that the fiber in fruit and so forth, when you eat that, delays the absorption of fruit. It delays absorption of everything because you can't. It's literally sawdust. That's what cellulose is. That's what fiber is. And they add sawdust into processed foods to up the fiber content. There's tons of foods that meet that. And so what does that do? It blocks the enzymes and so forth from getting at these the different foods in your gut, and it blocks them from actually hitting the villi and things like that in your small intestine and getting absorbed. So it delays that, stops that absorption, then it gets into your colon and bacteria eat it and so forth, and you eliminate it. So it does reduce some of the fructose in there, but at the same time you are getting that stuff in, so it is very important to be aware of that, and you're also getting other things that you don't want as well. Fiber in and of itself actually causes damage to your gut lining, causes microabrasion, causes increased mucus secretion, inflammatory reaction, and so forth. And so people, especially with autoimmune disorders, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, they have a real hard time with fiber and so forth.
Absolutely. So where do you think the story of fiber being good for us has come from? How do you think
I remember this when I was a kid. So the entire argument on why we should eat fiber and vegetables in general is everything was about fat fat craze in the 1980s. It was like, fat busters and all these sorts of things. It was like,
fat
diets, fat, you are what you eat. If you eat fat, you get fat. That was a whole argument. It's completely wrong. I ate a lot of fat. I got 70-80% of my calories from fat. I generally maintain below 10% body fat, even when I'm not working out.
And where do you get the fat from?
From steak, generally, from beef, and things like that. Butter, like I melt butter into my ribeye steaks. So in the 1980s, or 1977 to 1980, the USDA declared unequivocally that cholesterol causes heart disease, saturated fat increases cholesterol. Stop eating both of these things. That's completely wrong. It's going to be completely debunked. But that changed how everyone viewed everything. So the obesity rate in England after World War II was 6%. In 1983, when they adopted these same dietary models, it was still 6%. Now it's like over 24%. Same thing in America. It was 6% and 8%, and then it tripled in a very short period of time. So everyone started getting fat. Everyone started getting sick, and they got even more crazed about not eating fat. Then they said you should eat vegetables because they don't have nutrition, because they don't have calories, and because they're bulky and they have fiber, which you cannot absorb. So it was never actually argued at that time that this is nutritionally beneficial. They said, hey, this isn't nutritionally beneficial, so therefore you'll feel full, so you can eat as much of it as you want, and you'll get full, and you won't get any fat. There was a celery diet where it said you can just, it takes more calories to process the celery that you eat than you get from the celery. So just eat all the celery you want. It's like, well, that's how much celery I want, And they don't talk about all the other things in there as well, which are very harmful, toxic components that are in plants and vegetables and so forth, that are that plant's way of defending itself against being eaten, that people just aren't thinking about. But that was the entire argument, was that you can't break it down, you can't get nutrition from it.
But it makes you feel full.
But it makes it feel full, and you get the stress receptors, and your body produces a bit of leptin, your brain goes, oh, I'm full, and so forth. And it's nonsense. People were getting fatter, they're getting sicker, they're getting unwell. This is when a lot of the eating disorders really took off, bulimia, anorexia, and so forth. People are starved for nutrients. You need the fat, you need the meat, you need those things. But fat makes you fat. Meat has a lot of fat. Oh my goodness, stay away from it. And they're craving it, and everything in their body's like, you need to eat this, and so they'll binge and purge. They'll eat it, and then they'll go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, and they'll vomit it up. Or you get anorexics, which and people do have these sort of problems for a number of different issues. This is just one of them that's theorized, is that they aren't going to eat the everything that their body's craving them to have, because that's going to make them fat. And they have a very strong aversion to all the vegetables and things like that, because they don't make them feel good, because of different poisons and so forth. They just don't feel good, they don't like it, they don't taste good, and so they just don't eat at all. Right. And you get into a very pathological relationship with your food, as opposed to being, you eat food to give your body nutrition. Now you're eating for a lot of other different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
So if we go back to the effect that sugar has on your body, so we talked about fatty liver disease. How else is sugar affecting our bodies?
Yeah, so Professor Robert Lustig, who's a professor emeritus at University of California, San Francisco Medical School, in pediatric neuroendocrinology. So he deals with kids with bad diabetes and things like that. He, along with the biochemistry program at UCSF, I think last time I checked, it was like the number 6 medical research institution in America. So it's a very, very top institution. Yeah. They show biochemically, how fructose is broken down in your body by your liver and so forth. And it shows like all these different sorts of things. And it also showed that it causes peripheral insulin resistance, which is type 2 diabetes. It's also involved in atherosclerosis and so forth, so heart disease. We've actually had studies showing, or suggesting anyway, that sugar caused heart disease back in the 40s and 50s. And there was actually then that the sugar companies got wind of this and they said, like, okay, we need to cover this up.
Fat's bad, not sugar.
That's it. And so they actually, the Journal of American Medical Association actually published this in 2015, actual internal memos from the sugar companies back then, detailing how they paid off 3 Harvard professors to falsify data and publish fraudulent studies to make it appear as if cholesterol is causing heart disease when it was really sugar. And then one of those professors was named head of the USDA in 1965, and then all of a sudden the USDA just declares that this is happening, and it's appealing to authority. Teacher says so, says that cholesterol is bad, therefore cholesterol is bad. And it completely, ruined the reputations of everyone. They're saying, no, it's really sugar. And it really actually destroyed their careers and their livelihoods and so forth. And they were dead right the whole time. So Lustig showed that this does the same damage to your body as alcohol. After it's broken down, obviously it doesn't make you drunk and have the same central nervous effects, but after it's broken down, it has the same damage to your body and kids as well. Get them. People don't realize how much sugar is around. You'd never give a kid, whiskey. I hope. And but you'd probably give them orange juice or other juices, right? Yeah. Well, one 12-ounce glass of orange juice has as many grams of fructose as 3 shots of 40% whiskey have alcohol, and does the same damage to their little body. So he was showing all sorts of things, and he's written dozens of papers on the subject. He's written books on the subject and so forth, and tons and tons of talks as well that are readily available on YouTube. They're very interesting. He just talks about fructose and how damaging this is and how it causes the same things as alcohol: fatty liver disease, cirrhosis, diabetes, even heart disease. It's implicated in cancer. It certainly feeds cancer, if not precipitating and causing cancer, and even has a strong correlation with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is now referred to in some circles as type 3 diabetes. And so, there's these similar metabolic changes and effects that we're seeing in this disease process as with type 2 diabetes. And well, yeah, no kidding. They have the same cause, or at least they have one of the same causes.
That's interesting. I remember reading reports about elderly people who have Alzheimer's being put onto a ketogenic high-fat diet, and the Alzheimer's being repaired.
Yeah, well, there was quite large studies with that. With a high-fat ketogenic diet, they found it was a better treatment model than every Alzheimer's drug that's ever been trialed.
Right. Okay. Less profitable, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing with doctors now is we're usually for thousands of years of medicine, you had a disease that came up, or an injury or something, and you had a treatment for that thing. Okay. And so now we're looking at this. Now we have these chronic diseases. This is a disease. We need to treat this disease. But the problem is, it's not a disease. These are toxicities. These are poisoning coming, and sometimes we recognize something as poisoning. Lead poisoning is. It was like the Romans, right? Back in the day, they had lead pipes, and they all had sort of low-grade lead poisoning for however long. And they just thought, well, this is just how you age, this is how you do, and this is normal. And it's like, well, no, actually, it's not normal. Something's happening, something's making us sick. They figured out it was lead pipes. So we're living in that now. We don't realize we're being poisoned, but we're all being poisoned. So like vegetables, fruit, bread, sugar, these sorts of things, they're all our lead pipes. And you have to have some outsider looking in and going like, I can tell you that this is not normal.
Oh, honey, that's an animal product, right? Well, it's actually bee vomit, and they're just vomiting up concentrated nectar, okay, which comes from a plant. So if you want to get technical, it goes back, and it's not exactly an animal, but it's also sugar, okay? So there's more fructose